Like, nope.
What an asshole.
Such a fucking asshole. And it's just gross. That's 1959. He does other versions of Playboy After Dark that happened in the 70s, 60s, excuse me. And there's one clip that they show in the A&E special. It's Ike Turner with Tina Turner. And Ike looks just terrifying standing next to Tina. I mean, he did bring and he also at the Playboy Mansion, he would have like groups of black musicians. If they couldn't get a hotel room, they could stay at his place. Like, he's good about that.
Yeah.
But he's not about women. Like, that's not a part of the equation.
Right.
In the 60s, this is when Gene Siskel started showing up and hanging out at the Playboy Mansion. Found out.
Thumbs up.
Exactly.
I give the Playboy Mansion 2 thumbs up.
They start opening Playboy clubs. The Playboy moniker of the rabbit and all that stuff, they create these women called bunnies. And the bunnies wear these little bunny outfits. And why a bunny? Is it fuck like a bunny? Is that where that comes from? I don't know. But they have little ears and they have little tails. And very famously, Gloria Steinem went undercover to work for them and wrote about like just what a hellacious atmosphere it was. It was considered... You were paid a lot of money to work at a bunny club.
Yes.
And women were put in charge of the other bunnies. They were den mothers to the bunnies. And the bunnies had to, and it's they had to get weighed before they could put on their outfits. If you gain weight, you get demerit points. You had to serve everything a certain way. You had to be pleasant. You were not allowed to have sex with the customers, but that was more like a wink and a nod. Like, if we don't know about it, fine. But they wanted to protect women. Except that they did not protect these women coming and going from the building. So a lot of these women were getting stalked, were getting bothered. And they had clubs all over the country.
Yeah, I haven't watched the documentary series because I knew Margot was going to talk about Hugh Hefner and I didn't want to, I already know he sucks, but I will watch it. But I did watch the documentary series about Bill Cosby and they interviewed some Playboy bunnies in there and they were talking about how they had to learn the bunny dip.
Yes.
Which is like how you serve people. Like, you couldn't just like reach across people and like give them their drinks. You had to like kind of dip and like lean back and like hand them their drinks and all this stuff. It's very controlling. And they did talk about like being weighed and being measured and all of those things. And also, yes, no one protecting you as you were like leaving work.
No, it didn't. Yeah. They would get stalked with phone calls. I mean, it was all this kind of stuff. The brand starts getting more and more popular. And we go into the 70s. He's dating a woman named Barbie Benton. And he dates Playmates. And for a while, he'll have officially one girlfriend, but he's screwing everybody.
Yes.
And she was the one from Chicago that convinced him to move to L.A. Bill Cosby becomes a great friend. Jim Brown becomes a great friend. A lot of actors, James Caan, Roman Polanski.
Yes.
Is an early attendee of the Playboy Club. He buys a mansion for $1 million. $1 million in 1975, which was a lot
big
of money
at the time.
It was.
Yeah.
And it's huge. It's acres of land. There's like 20 rooms. There's a tennis court and there's a grotto, which is this outdoor kind of water space that has caves and shit like that. And they move into the mansion in 1975. And that's when he starts saying to Barbie, I'm just not going to do this one woman thing anymore, just so you know. And Barbie says, okay, fine. I've been with you for 5 years. I'm going to like start my career. So she's like an actress and stuff like that. Whatever. This is when the mansion really just goes crazy. The 1970s. Bill Cosby, like I said, goes there. Don Cornelius was a big fan. There's sex going on everywhere.
Right.
There are cameras everywhere. And women are everywhere you go. You could see naked women, and some people describe it as, oh, it was actually very old fashioned and sweet. Like some people were just sunbathing nude, like no big deal. And then the people are like, oh, they had movie nights there. Christmas, oh my God, Christmas was amazing at the Playboy Mansion. They had a buffet and everything. Like, okay.
Well, around Christmas, it only comes once a year. Get it? So gross. I keep thinking of the grotto and all these people fucking, and it's like a gross, like fucking STD soup.
Well, years and years and years later, when the mansion is finally, well, it happened in 2010 actually, even before they sold the mansion. There were like 100 people that got sick there, so they had to send like a cleanup crew, like FEMA, and they had Legionnaire's disease everywhere.
Oh my God!
So it was
bad.
Bad.
So bad.
Okay, so the next girlfriend that we'll talk about is Sandra Theodore. 1976, she starts dating Hugh Hefner. She's 19 years old. He's not. They're hanging out. He's like 50. She starts going to the parties, and she was going to be an actress, and she's blonde and very beautiful. And gradually she realizes, like, he's going to fuck around, which he does. He's really into group sex. He is really into orgies. He doesn't like to participate in them, but he likes to watch. He's a voyeur.
Oh, okay.
At the same time, his best friend is a doctor, Dr. Saganor, and he has his daughter living at the mansion. So this is a 9-year-old girl living.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine.
Well, and she's living there, and she's sort of like, it was nice at first. The bunnies would take care of her, and she had a chauffeur, and a butler made her lunch every day. Like, she was considered special, but she grew up really too fast. And she basically got into a relationship with a bunny when she was 15 years old, and the bunny was much older. She got involved. It's like the servants or the butlers, they would serve them drinks in bed, and they knew that it was wrong. And they admit this in the documentaries.
Yeah.
There's men that work there. They're like, yeah, I saw it, and we didn't say anything. Sandra is getting more and more into drugs. It's cocaine. Hugh loves to give women Quaaludes because they're thigh openers, much like Bill Cosby.
Yeah, his Spanish fly.
In the early 70s, there was a couple of incidences. One with Bill Cosby, which we've talked about in our Bill Cosby episode. But Don Cornelius, there was an incident, had a bunch of bunnies come over to his apartment for a party, and they wound up being captive there for days.
I have never heard this.
Had to be rescued. They went to the hospital. Here's the thing. Very early on, Hefner's very, very powerful. He's got a lot of money, and there's a lot of guys that love to hang out with him because there's just pussy everywhere if you're hanging out with Hugh Hefner. Like, that's
right.
Right. So he's got the police in his hip pocket in Chicago and in LA. So if you go to the police with a problem at the mansions, at any of the mansions, they're going to kind of like yes you to death and then let you go. No one's going to do. People get paid off this. So there's a story about Don Cornelius. There's a story about Bill Cosby. As recently as 2014, someone was sexually assaulted by Bill Cosby.
Oh my God!
At the mansion. This young girl, Jennifer Saganor, Saganor, excuse me. She's the one that's being, she's in a relationship, but she doesn't realize that it's really inappropriate. They're giving her drugs, and then Sandra Theodore is starting to procure women for Hugh Hefner to make him happy. This is where empathy, it can be difficult for people to find empathy. Not for me. Some people have a hard time finding empathy. But it's like if you're talking about somebody who's over 18 and appears to be in on it, then what's the problem? But if somebody is being manipulated by someone and that person's feeding you a lot of drugs and being like really great to you 1 minute and then being a real asshole the next minute, it's controlling.
We had the same thing with Peter Nygard.
Yes. Exactly.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. So he promised, and all these women want to be is the Playmate of the Year because that's the real feather in your cap. Because some of them do go on to some kind of careers. Shannon Tweed, I believe she was that's Patrick Bromley's.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Some of them do. But there's a lot of competition for it. In the 70s, there's also this thing of like other magazines start competing like We and Penthouse. And so it gets grimier. Hustler. Larry Flint Hustler. It gets grimier and grimier, and it's not what he's into. He wants to keep it kind of like, they look sweet, but
yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, they used to do like co-eds, like the hottest co-eds.
Right.
That was a Playboy thing, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
The idea of like, well, and by the way, Hustler did this too with like Barely Legal was a spin-off magazine of Hustler, but like Playboy also had that where like they're good girls, they're the girls next door kind of vibe.
They're really selling that. And there's nothing wrong with nudity, and there's nothing wrong with like, if that's what you want to do and it makes you feel good and that's part of
shaming
no
here.
Shaming here. There's none. But here's the problem. They're paid nothing. A lot of them have to get photographed before they're going to be even approached to do it. Do they all sign releases? How old are they when they're signing these releases? Hugh Hefner, as I said, he had cameras everywhere. He was constantly taking pictures of people, and he was constantly collecting videos of people in every room. When he was directing these orgies, sometimes there were famous actors in these orgies. People would just get high as fuck, and then they'd be in on it. Are you going to go to the police afterwards?
I was just going to say he owns you.
Yes.
He owns you at that point.
So you're not going to be someone that says he's a pig. You're going to be like, oh, he was a real nice guy. Went there for movie night. You know, nothing happens that's not consensual. Everything is completely consensual. It's all okay with the women. Sandra is one of those women that she was a part of those orgies and stuff like that. And one day they had different nights for things. There was party nights and there's movie nights. And there's something, Sonia, that was called pig night. What that was is that Hugh Hefner would send a couple of men out, chauffeurs, butlers, whatever, to procure sex workers from the Sunset Strip.
Okay.
He'd bring them in, and he said, order whatever drinks you want, whatever food. They had like a nice table laid out, and then they have some movie stars and TV stars there, men. And the men, what they would do is they would like have them, use the restroom, and get ready, and we'll have dinner. They'd rate the looks of the women, like 1 to 10. And then they bring the women in and they'd have dinner, and Hugh never ate. He just sat at the end of the table. He just watched them. He gave them their drinks. They gave them their drugs. And then he'd say, do you guys really want to party now? The doctor that had his daughter living there.
Yeah.
He would take them into the bathroom and check them out to make sure they were okay. And then they would go have sex with these actors, and he would film everything.
Oh my gosh.
And all these people, they had all this evidence against them. But that was pig night for Hugh Hefner.
Pig night. They're the pigs because they're not Playboy bunnies.
Yeah.
I guess.
They're not on the level. Playboy, what he likes, blonde, big boobs, fake boobs, and long blonde hair. Yeah. And there's that's what he likes. I mean, the magazine will feature women of different hair colors, but there was also some trans people that were there. He's just picking people up off the street. And sex work is sometimes the only work some people can get, just to do the circumstances of their lives. So I'm not going to judge that. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, no, there's no judgment here on that either. Like, you do what you need to do or want to do, I should say.
Right.
Yeah, but what a gross way to refer to it. And not cool. What a creep. One
of those women that came to the mansion and wanted to be a big star was a woman named Dorothy Stratton. She was 19 years old. Her boyfriend that she married was from Vancouver. He's a real fucking creep. When she later on hooked up with Peter Bogdanovich, and she had a romance with him, and then that broke up her marriage, and then she eventually went back to her husband. It was a murder-suicide.
Yeah, it's awful. There was a movie called Star 80. If y'all are interested in that, it's tough. It's a tough one. In 1980, she was the Playboy Playmate of the Year, and that was a big one because it was for the decade, right? Being 1980 was a big deal. That was a big year.
Right. And so she Later on, she told Peter Bogdanovich that Hugh Hefner forced himself on her in the grotto. They weren't allowed to say rape because Hugh Hefner had the lockdown, like he would sue. But that's what she told Peter Bogdanovich. That's what happened to her by Hugh Hefner.